Shock Treatment the movie is rated PG, but Shock Treatment Minute is rated F for
French!
We're going to spend this time discussing the movie in gory detail, and along the way we'll talk about adult content and use adult language. Consider yourselves warned. Welcome to Shock Treatment Minute, the podcast where we break down shock treatment in excruciating detail. I'm one of your hosts, Leandra.
And I'm your other host, Kelly.
And today we have just the most delightful 14th minute of this movie that we could possibly find.
Yeah, listen, I watched all the 14th minutes of Shock Treatment.
Yeah, and Kelly destroyed all of the other ones, so you're
true.
probably only going to be able to get this one now.
It's true. And if that, because I may, of course, once again decide to remove it from the original film and feed it to the corpse of Walt Disney. Or, I guess, living head in cryogenically frozen, definitely still alive body.
You're not going to feed it to the neck stump. That's disgusting, Kelly.
I don't know, now that you mention it.
So, before you do that,
okay.
And let me reiterate, please don't, but what happens in minute 14?
Oh, okay. So, Bert continues from the last minute his line with series featuring those perennial favorites, Nation and Cosmo McKinley, neurospecialists par excellence. And then Janet turns to look apprehensively at him, and he says, I recommend, if you pardon my French, Janet, that you send Brad to them for treatment. And she says, I know he's a little boring, but, neurospecialists, that sounds a little drastic. And then he cuts her off and says, it's no use pussyfooting around, Janet. We have to cut quick and deep. Brad, who I assume understood none of this, smiles, and she kind of nods and smiles as though admitting something. And then back to Kirk's coffee, Oliver Wright is looking up and whispering to himself, McKinley, McKinley. And Betty says, Bert brought them over from Europe. He says, oh? And she says, they had a very popular series together. It's still rerun in a lot of countries. You must have seen them in Dentonvale. By the way, at this moment, we see the wardrobe and makeup lady go up the stairs behind them. I just like to spot the wardrobe lady. But Wright is deep in thought, and he murmurs kind of distracted, no, I never watch that. And then we faintly hear Bert saying off screen while this is happening, it's no use delaying another moment, and then it's back to him and he continues, I'm afraid there's only one solution. Isn't there, folks? 1, 2, 3, and as he's counting, we get a shot from behind the cameras and monitors, and we see the floor manager holds up a sign that says Dentonvale for the audience, and then they obediently shout, Dentonvale! And by the way, at this moment on the commentary, Patricia Quinn also shouted Dentonvale, and it was very cute. Then Bert cries, Hoopla! Before looking down the barrel of the camera to add, don't go away, we'll be right back to see if Brad and Janet want to play or pass. And then it's zooming in on his horrible mouth more and more while he says this. Then we hear organ music and we see the Denton Home of Happiness sign again, but now, in the heart, we can see the silhouette of who we now know to be Farley Flavors come into view. And that's the minute.
That is a wonderful minute.
It really is.
It really is.
And you know, play or pass, that's definitely a Family Feud thing, so.
Yes, and there's even a callback related to that.
I'm not surprised. So that strengthens my thought that this game show was partially inspired by Family Feud. What a minute, though, huh?
It's really great. You brought up Bert's face, his mouth,
yeah.
and what's wrong with that smile? It's not that his teeth are disgustingly yellow. There's just something awful about his smile, and it's awful.
Well, I've called it a horrible rictus in the past, and I think that is still true. There's something ghastly about it.
Yeah, it's good acting is what it is.
Yeah, because Dame Edna does not have this problem.
It's very true.
So, there's a lot to go over. First of them, I guess, pardon what French? I mean, I guess that's the joke, but it's so funny.
Yeah, it is.
Because he says,
It's
"Pardon my
very goofy.
French, that you send Brad to them for treatment." It's just funny.
Yeah. Honestly, Bert has some really fun lines in this minute,
Oh, yeah.
particularly that first one that he says at the beginning of this minute and it starts at the end of last minute. It very much has the same tongue twistery vibe as this sonic transducer. It is, I suppose, some kind of audio vibratory physiomolecular transport device, which I think really points to this at one point being written to be Dr. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're at least cut from the same cloth.
100%. There's no use pussyfooting around Janet. That's another favorite of mine.
Oh, absolutely. I love that line.
I thought
It
you might.
is it's delicious the way that he says it. It's very goofy.
Speaking of line reads we love, when Oliver, I keep wanting to call him Krim, when Oliver says, "I never watch that," it always reminds me of "I never drink wine" from Dracula. you know?
I don't know if you scrolled down and looked at my note,
No.
but I was writing literally the exact same thing that you had written, and then I looked up and saw that I was writing the exact same note.
That's so funny.
Like down to it's from Dracula. It's the I never drink wine.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's no reason for that to have been an allusion to a Dracula
No.
line. It's a line reading that is goofy.
It just has very much the same feeling. I think what actually happened is he was just trying to convey that he was not really listening to Betty or paying, because and that is what he conveys, but it just, because of the way that he said it, it sounds so much like the classic Dracula line. So good. I would have
100%.
loved, he would have made a great Dracula.
He would have made a great lots of things.
Well, yeah, I know, but I have a particular love of Dracula. So what Universal monster would you have most wanted to see him in?
I'm trying to think. I feel like instead of him being a universal monster, he really would be a great like maybe like Dr. Frankenstein, not the monster.
Ooh.
That would have
Or
been a
Good Van
good one.
Helsing.
Yes, exactly. I was getting it's I don't think of him as a monster sort of
Mm-hmm.
vibe. He's more of a like he's going to protect us from the monster.
That's true. He has that fatherly vibe. So, Nation makes sense. What do you think Cosmo came from?
I don't know. I guess it's like the SAT X is to X as X is to X.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's supposed to be kind of similarly to Nation. Cosmo is a larger description of a space.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Because, like, obviously Nation would make sense for the, like, nationalism thing they're going for. As far as I know, Cosmo and Nation are their real first names. Of course, we learn later that they name themselves after various presidents, but for the record, McKinley was another titan of the Republican Party, so it makes sense why they would have chosen him as their namesake.
Yeah, it definitely checks out.
Mm-hmm. I wrote that Brad's crooked glasses are relatable. That happens to me a lot. And when that used to happen to me, like when I was in high school, my mom would get really sad and force me to fix it because she thought I looked like dazed and like an oaf. So, so
Well, funny
she.
you should say that. My note regarding Brad.
He looks like Kelly. Wait, it's not
No,
that, is it?
it
Okay.
isn't. God, that would be it would be fucked up of me to say that.
No, but it really gives the it was intentional, I'm sure, and it really effectively gives the impression that he's like a mess, basically.
My note is Brad is listening like the sun in the sky through the first part of this minute. And
Yeah.
listeners, I don't know if you even know that reference that Kelly and I keep shoving down your throats, but
hmm
it's this bit from
Like you
30
were
Rock.
Walt Disney's frozen head.
It's so true. But there's this episode of 30 Rock where Jenna is attempting to be a good listener, and in her head, she starts giving herself like accolades for being such a good listener, and then she sings a song about it all in her head. So
Mm-hmm.
Brad is listening like the sun in the sky, much
So
like Jenna
true.
Maroney would.
Yeah, and like that's why I said in my recap, but I assume Brad was not listening very well because he gives a sunny smile in response to Bert saying that he should be involuntarily committed. So, yeah,
And that laugh is, oh, everybody else is laughing. Ha 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 ha
exactly.
ha.
That's exactly what it was.
But those are all of my notes.
My final note is some of those people in the audience were not saying Dentonvale. And if you watch their mouths, yeah,
They're doing their best.
they are. Yeah, I just thought it was funny. But a lot of them were, including Patricia Quinn. She had so much fun recording this commentary. I really, really recommend to our audience that they track it down. Anyway, I don't have any callbacks. What about you, Leandra?
I have a couple, and it starts with I recommend, if you pardon my French, Janet, and then to that, you say fuck
Fuck off.
off. And then when Bert continues that you send Brad to them for treatment, you say a lobotomy. And then after that line, you say, how's your dad in bed? And Janet says, I know he's a little boring.
Yeah.
Ugh. I tried to think of how to make that a different joke, but eh.
I mean, you could choose some celebrity that you want to make fun of.
How's typical man in bed?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then I have another one. When Bert says there's no use pussyfooting around Janet, you say, then get your foot out of her pussy. And then when Bert says we have to cut quick and deep, you shout like OJ. And when there's a pause and music is playing again, you shout, which president did you kill? And then Oliver says McKinley. And then you shout, who? And then he says McKinley again, and you go, oh. And what you can do as a result of that is you killed McKinley, you bastard. Or, and this isn't going to make sense to people who are listening to this minute by minute and watching the movie minute by minute, but you can yell, you shouldn't have said that. Your father doesn't like presidents, which is going to be very funny once you hear Emily Weiss say a very similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when Betty says Bert brought them over from Europe and Oliver says, oh, you just shout duty free. And then Betty says they had a very popular series together. And this is really, you shout your favorite European show. The one that came to mind for me was Doctor Who.
Of course.
Yeah. And then as she's saying you must have seen them in Dentonvale, you shout over top of that, when you take a shower, do you wash your asshole? And then Oliver says, no, I never wash that. And it's because when he says watch, it's a little bit mushy. Sounds a bit like wash. And if you don't line that one up and you're just saying, no, I never watched that, you can respond to Oliver Wright saying that by saying, I'd miss Baywatch. And then later on, when the audience screams Dentonvale, you shout, oh shit, not again. And then you start clapping like you're about to sing Denton, Denton, USA. Finally, Bert says, don't go away. We'll be right back to see if Brad and Janet want to play or pass. And you shout, oh, we're going to pass, Richard. Or I guess it would be Steve Harvey now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna play, Steve.
But that is all I got.
Really?
Yup.
Well, then I guess I just have one final question for you.
Yes.
Does this bird belong to you?
Ah. No, that one's not going to sound right. Ah. So saith a lesbian.